USB deadlift. With the USB deadlift, we want to grab the bag and place it on top of our feet. From here, what we want to do is have the logo facing towards us. That way the parallel handles are in line with our shins. Next, we want to start in a tall and tight position, have a slight bend in the knee, reach your hips back. And as you grab these handles, we want to pull the bag away from each other. So imagine that you're tearing the bag in half. And lastly, having the pits of your elbows forward. We don't want our hands rotated inward, specifically our elbows, because then we shut the lats off. And so in order to get maximum lat tension, try to pull those handles away with the pit of your elbows facing forward. From here, I'm going to press my feet into the floor and stand tall. Again, I'm pulling that handles apart, bending my knees, reaching my hips back. From a different position here, bend my knees, reach my hips back, creating that maximum tension on the bag by ripping it in half. That way my upper back stays tall and tight. So again, I'm in a tall and tight position, slight bend in my knees, reach my hips back, press my feet into the floor to stand tall. USB good morning. With the USB good morning, what we're going to be doing is placing the bag in the crook of the arms. What this exercise is going to teach us is how to absorb force before we learn how to create it with the next exercise. But what we want to do here is we want to pull the bag up into a front-loaded position. So again, setup is starting with the bag on the feet, handles in line with the shins, with the logo facing you. From here, I'm going to pull the bag up and pull my elbows forward to hold in this position. Now there's two things that you can do here, is you can either keep your arms in this position or you can pull your hands towards you. The goal here is to emphasize the tension you're creating with your upper back as you're pulling the bag into your chest. So now I'm in the good morning position or the front loaded position. From here, I'm going to start in a tall and tight position, bend my knees, reach my hips back, press my feet into the floor as I stand tall. So again, as I'm going through this motion, I'm emphasizing the tension into the bag. That way it feels like a loaded plank. So as I'm going through this motion, that bag is helping me resist the bend of my upper back or my low back, reaching, rounding forward, so that again, I'm keeping a tall and tight position as I'm going through this hinge. USB high pull. With the USB high pull, we're going to be learning how to create force and speed. So I'm having the bag in the deadlift position, bags on the feet, handles are parallel with the shins as the logo is facing me. I'm going to go into my deadlift position. Now from here, I'm going to press my feet into the floor and stand tall. The next thing I'm going to do is pull my elbows wide and then reach my hips back as I let the bag float down. Reach and pull, bring those hips back. So as I'm going through this motion, elbows get wide and they straighten out as I go down. One thing I've noticed with a lot of people is when they're going through this motion, what we want to do is emphasize those elbows pulling back, then bringing down. Handles are pulled apart, and it reminds me of a TRX face pull, but instead of the hands being perpendicular with me, they're going to be in a more upright position, similar to that of a scarecrow. So as I'm going through that high pull, again, I have a slight bend in my knees, I'm reaching my hips back, and I'm just emphasizing the pull of my elbows back, letting the bag go in line with my chest, bringing it back down to that hinged position. USB front-loaded clean. With the USB front-loaded clean, we're going to put all the pieces together. We're going to put together the deadlift, the high pull into a all-in-one motion. So same setup as before. I'm going to have the bag on my feet. The handles are going to be in line with my shins. I'm going to have the logo facing towards me. I'm going to be tall and tight, slight bend in my knee, reach my hips back. As I grab the bag, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to be explosive up with my high pull as I drive my elbows forward. So from this top position, what I want to emphasize is the bottom. And so as I go through that bottom position, I'm going to pull my elbows back and down and straighten them out as I go to the bottom position. So again, I'm tall and tight, have a slight bend in my knee, reaching my hips back. From here, I press my feet into the floor, pull the bag up, elbows go forward. From that top position, pull my elbows back, and let my elbows extend at the bottom. Oftentimes what I've seen is people have elbow issues if they're hanging on to the bag as they're going down, because we don't want to be from here keeping those elbows bent, because that weight's pulling us forward. And if that weight's pulling us forward and we're hanging on to it with those elbows bent, it's going to start pulling on the joint. And we don't want to irritate the joint. So make sure that as you're going through your clean, you're pulling those elbows up, you're driving them back, you're getting them straight as they're going down. So really emphasize those elbows being pulled back and straightened out as you're going through the front loaded clean on the way down. USB fist loaded clean. Now we're going to take the USB clean and we're going to land it onto our fist rather than the front of our chest. And so as we're going through this movement, it's going to take more technicality as you go through this. So feel free to have a lot of missed reps in this movement because it is challenging and it is difficult. We've taken a wide base of support on the chest into a more narrow base of support, which is our fist. And so the same setup is going to be as we were with our deadlift. We're having the bag on our feet, the handles in line with the shins, the logo facing us. We're going to have a tall and tight position, bend our knees, reach our hips back. Now as I grab the bag, I'm going to go into my high pull by pressing my feet into the floor, but now I grab the bag onto my fist. And so the same thing as before, when I bring that bag down, I pull my elbows back and straighten them right away. That way, again, I take out the tension in the elbow and I avoid trying to irritate the joint in itself by hanging on. So, tall and tight, press my feet into the ground, pull the bag onto my fist, elbows back, and elbows go straight. So again, I'm going through my motion. It's still a hinge, except now I've just added in the upper body component here by pulling the bag up onto my fist and keeping myself in a tall and tight position.